Welcome to CaFae Convos. I am your host, C. Emilangi. The C stands for Chris or Christina. I don't care, use whichever. And today we are talking to an author who is somewhere in the UK. I didn't ask exactly where. She does fantasy and science fiction. She's come here to the States for a couple of conventions. And she writes fantasy and science fiction. Faith, why don't you introduce yourself?
Hello, everybody. I am based in Scotland in the
Mm.
UK. So that's where I am. Although I suspect, Chris, I'm trying to think when I first met you, I might have been in London then.
No, I've never been to London.
Oh, okay.
That's impossible.
Oh, okay. Okay. So,
You
yeah.
might have met my mom in London because she and my dad visited when they were researching her time travel book, A Contemporary Asshat at the Court of King Henry
Oh,
VIII.
yes. Do you know what? Actually, that really does ring a bell. Gosh, isn't it a small world?
I know, right?
Oh. Yeah, anyway, so my name is Faith. I write as FD Lee. And yeah, as you say, I write science fiction and fantasy. As much as I'm known for anything, which probably isn't super much, but I would say as much as I'm known for anything, it would be fantasy, I think, though.
I mean, I know you as the British girl who shows up at Convergence.
That's the best con. It's the best con in the world. I loved it so much. Um,
I'm like so
yeah.
spoiled on it because it takes place like half an hour from where I live. So
Oh
I'm
my
just like,
God.
whatever. It's Convergence. It's whatever.
Oh wow, yeah, you don't know you're born. Oh my goodness me. Yeah, no, it's one of the best conventions I've ever been to. It was so, oh my gosh, wow, it was so much fun and there was so much to see and do and the vibe was so cool and the people were so friendly and the cosplay.
Oh,
The
yeah. No,
cosplay, my God.
here's the thing, Minnesota, the Twin Cities outside of New York City is like one of the big publishing capitals of the world. And that is because in the summer it is way too hot, in the winter it is way too cold. We don't have anything to do but stay inside and read, write, binge watch television, catch up on movies, and then if we're particularly creative, make cosplay.
Oh my gosh, you see, this is my spiritual home, I think. Oh, I love it. You see, yeah, no, absolutely. I love it. So I ended up at Convergence because it was quested. It was a quest that was given to me by Galadriel and the hobbits from Lord of the Rings um, at Worldcon in Chicago.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
I need to do a World Con at some point.
they're good fun, actually. I have to say they are really good fun. They are good fun. But yeah, so I was at ShyCon, um, and you know how it is at conventions. You just get chatting to people. You just
Mhm.
make friends and get chatting. So I was on the stall selling my books, and Galadriel just drifted past in this most absolutely insane costume dress. So obviously started talking to Galadriel, and then the hobbits showed up because obviously again this is all makes sense, it all tracks. And very kindly they bought some books, and then they came back I think a while later and said, "Oh yeah, okay, we've had a look. Have you ever been to Convergence?" I was like, "No, I've never even heard of it. No." And that was it. That was the moment when Galadriel and the hobbits bestowed the quest that we had to go to Convergence. And we did, because you do not turn Galadriel down when she gives you a quest. You
No, you
cannot
don't.
do it.
It's a
So
rule. It
yeah,
is a geek law.
absolutely. I mean, who would I be if I was like, yeah, do you know what? You're all right. Actually, I'm fine. So yeah, so we scrimped and saved. We put kind of all of our pennies into a pot, and yeah, we got to go to Convergence, and I'm so grateful, honestly, absolutely so grateful to the fellowship for opening this kind of door for us, because it was wonderful. I keep saying us, by the way, because I do these things with my long suffering spouse.
Oh,
But yeah, no, it was wonderful, absolutely wonderful convention. I heartily recommend it. I want to go back, but it's finding the time and the money, as always.
I know, right? I'm lucky in that I do get to go pretty much every year, and I just have to pay the the entrance fee basically. And they put
Mm.
me on a ton of panels, and I don't do the cosplay. I am not nearly that talented. Ironically, my roommate does.
Oh,
Uh,
really?
she's been teaching herself how to sew. I teach myself how to crochet and knit. She teaches herself how to sew, which when it comes to cosplaying, one of those is definitely more applicable than the other.
Yeah, true enough. True enough. A friend of mine's son, and I'm going to betray the friendship now because I can't quite remember how old he is. I think 13, 12 or 13. Um, has
In the angst
very,
stage.
yeah, very, very recently discovered the joys of cosplay. He's been in fandom and geek. Honestly, I'm pretty sure that he came out of the womb holding a Star Wars encyclopedia. Do you know what I mean? But yeah, he's just discovered cosplay and is now um entering the world, I think, of having to learn how to sew. They've done very well with kind of safety pins and sticky tape and things like that, but I think his ambition now is leading to the point where he is just going to have to knuckle down and learn how to sew. So
Yeah,
because there's no way that my friend, his mum, is going to do it.
I know,
Absolutely
right?
not.
You've either gotta, you know, watch copious amounts of YouTube videos and or go to some sort of showing sewing stop craft store that has IRL lessons.
Mm, mm. I think so. And you have to have, I think, a natural skill for it, or maybe at least not a deficit of skill. Um,
Mm,
I certainly can't do any of those kind of quite fiddly things.
right.
I don't have the coordination for it. I've tried knitting, and the most basic thing is a scarf, right? And
Yeah.
I've tried knitting scarves in the past, and they come out looking like some kind of weird, multi-dimensional kind of Ouroboros
You just
thing.
need to use like kinky or knobby yarn that like waxes and wanes it in with, because then it'll look like you did it on purpose.
Ah, okay. Even when it comes out and it looks like a very squiggly ordnance survey map, kind of rocking around a river, kind of thing.
It'll look more on purpose than if you're using just regular yarn. You could at least try to sell the fact that you meant to make it look like this. It's hard.
Okay, okay. All right, I like that. I'll have to take a note from you afterwards to remind me of the name of the wool.
And
But
anyone who argues with you will just, oh, they just don't understand art.
well,
They
it's
just
my
don't get modern art.
process. Exactly. It's my process. It's my creativity. Exactly that. But no, I again, I suppose it's not surprising given the circles that I move in, but I know a lot of people who are, crafters, either sewing or
Mhm.
crochet or embroidery or, dum knitting, things like that. So I'm very lucky because I get to receive the benefits of their skill without actually having to kind of, you know, spend my life with plasters stuck around my fingers and things like that, which is what would happen for sure.
You get the stuff that we don't like for ourselves.
Mm, I'm fine with that. I know that's that. The stuff that you guys don't like for yourself is light years, orders of magnitude better than anything that I could ever do. So it's a really fair exchange in that case. Yeah.
Makes sense. So at some point we should talk about books and whatnot. You
Oh.
know, so you have multiple books and series
Mm,
out now,
mm,
most of them fantasy, often with some sort of spin on a fairy tale trope. What is your most
mm.
recent book, and how did that happen? How did it come to be?
So the most recent book that I published, the most recent book published is book 5 in my kind of ongoing fairy tale fantasy series. called, I'm just looking at my bookshelf. I should know my babies, shouldn't I? Called The First and Final Story. So how did that come
Sounds like a
about?
King Arthur thing.
Yes, it is. Yeah, well spotted actually. Yeah, absolutely
Yeah.
quite right. Yes, quite right. Um, because so gosh, okay. We're going to get into the geeky behind the scenes stuff now. So the first novel, it's a series, so it's an ongoing series, and the first book is called The Fairy's Tale, and it is a play around on kind of grim fairy tales, medieval folklore, very much the kind of European tradition. Before Disneyfication and so on and
Mm.
so forth. And I had a
It's
lot
always
of
fun to go back.
mm,
It's always fun
yeah,
to go back to the OGs. And then
absolutely. You want
you
the
read
blood
them and
and
you're
the
just like,
bone.
wow, Disney just really sanitized this.
Hmm. Oh yeah, absolutely. And this probably reveals a lot about myself, probably more than I necessarily am aware of. But when I was growing up, I had a Steiner education, and I don't know if that's part. I feel like that's part of it. I feel like that's part of the cause. But we were certainly exposed to all the proper. I remember being in the classroom and hearing the proper Rumpelstiltskin story and the proper Rapunzel story, you know, where the prince falls into the briar patch and has his eyes pulled out.
Yeah, he has his eyes poked out and he wanders the desert for like 10 years until he runs into Rapunzel again, who has had his
Mm-hmm.
kids, and like her tears bring his eye you grow his eyeballs back.
Yes,
Which
as was
actually
medically
he
sound at the
actually does
time.
kind of
Yes.
do that a little bit, you know, at the end of Tangled. I was actually kind of impressed when I was like, "Shit's her tears, they're bringing it back to life."
Oh yeah, no, that's another divergent path. I'll loop back to that. Um, but yeah, no, so the first book was this kind of spin on these kind of European medieval folk stories that were initially kind of recorded, most famously by the Brothers Grimm, and they went on to inspire the Arthurian legends and like medieval romance, and that went on to inspire kind of what Tolkien was doing, and then Tolkien went on to inspire a lot of the Baths publications, and then the Baths went on to kind of solidify what the fantasy canon was recognized as. I think nowadays we have a little bit more nuance because you have high fantasy and urban fantasy and this fantasy and that fantasy. But certainly for a long time, fantasy was what we might now call high fantasy or swords and sorcery.
Mhm.
And the books that I've written have kind of followed that trajectory. So the most recent book, this I am coming back around. This I'll get back to your question. It's like magic. So the most recent book, The First and Final Story, is exactly that. It's very much pulling on the more, if you like, modern kind of understandings of what fantasy is. I say modern in inverted commas because I'm still at the kind of Tolkien Baths kind of point at the
Mhm.
moment. And that kind of very entrenched kind of medieval romance, Arthurian legend, chosen one, journeys, um, quests, that kind of thing. So yeah, it was called The First and Final Story because um, I wanted to chime with the Once and Future King.
Mhm. Yeah.
So yeah, so no, you're quite right. It's really interesting that you spotted that. I've spoken quite a lot about the book, and you're the first person that said, "Oh, that title sounds quite Arthurian," and I'm like, "Yeah, somebody got it!" Woo woo.
Thank you.
Because
Yeah, no,
sometimes
I
I
had
do
to
want. Sorry, carry on.
yeah, no, it's just because I had to do some a lot of research into like OG fairy lore and fae lore, and
Mm,
trying to go
mm,
back to, okay, what is original fae mythos? Like, what is that? And like the question is like with many, complicated. And obviously Arthurian legends had it didn't start with Arthurian legend, but
No, but it
they
was a
had a very
very
strong impact on what a fairy
hugely,
is and
yeah,
how they operate and their place in the story. Like Morgan Le Fay
yeah.
literally being the fair and all that stuff. So I did end up consuming a bit of Arthurian lore, and so once and future king, I know that. And so when you said first and final, I'm like, oh, especially when you said it was, about fairy tales, I'm like, okay, I know where she's going with
I
this,
know, I
which is
know what
not a bad thing
she's
at all.
doing. I know what she's doing. No, absolutely. No, it's lovely because for me, one of the things that I've most enjoyed, so the series is called the Pathways Tree series. And one of the things that I've most enjoyed about it is because of the way I've set up the world, I can play with genre tropes and it makes sense within the story world.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so the kind of logic behind the world that our main character B lives in is so you could ask yourself, why do fairy tales always have the same morals, the same ending? Why are the baddies always X, Y, and Z? Why are the goodies always A, B, and C? Why is there this kind of commonality
Mm-hmm.
throughout the all? The answer to which is obviously because these stories are being controlled by a totalitarian fairy government that uses them to harvest human belief to power their cities.
Of course, that tracks.
Well, I know, right? I mean, it's once you think to yourself, "Gosh, how did I never see that?" Um, and this is the world that my characters exist in, for better or for worse. But what it has also allowed me to do, because they live in a world of creating narratives, in order for their city to survive, the fairies, the fae, have to create narratives that are simple enough to be remembered and repeated, and kind of, what's the word I'm looking for here? Kind of instinctual enough
Mm.
that people will believe them without questioning them too much. And so a
Okay.
lot of,
Yeah.
stories of, as began with the old folk tales, those stories were designed for repetition and they were designed for social conditioning.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the point and the purpose of them. It had to be a story that could survive multiple retellings with the core lesson and morality intact, which tended to then rely on stereotyping and tropes. And then it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, because you learn these stories. The old woman who lives on her own is sinister and shifty, and the young handsome man is good and kind, and so on and so forth. And those kind of things, they become self-fulfilling prophecies because you hear them in the story, and then you start to repeat those beliefs in your external life, which then go on to feed the story, which then feeds the repeating of these beliefs in your external life.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so for B and the other characters in the Pathways tree, the kind of conflict comes from, well, what do we do? Because without these stories, our society is going to crumble. Our society will fall. But with these stories, we are causing very real and very active harm to the human world. Um, and it's a really fun pace to sort of play in, because it allows me to pull on other genres and again, like this sort of winding history of fantasy within the arc of the books. But I can stop off at other points and kind of look at different kind of genres and tropes and things without, I hope, this is the hope, right? But
Right.
without
Fingers crossed.
it, yeah, fingers crossed, but without it feeling shoehorned in for the reader.
Mhm.
Because it's logical to the world that B and the other heroes and villains are inhabiting. And I mean, as with anything, isn't it? You make something and you hope it will work for people. By and large, people seem to have responded to it very well. If you look at, the reviews and kind of people
I mean, you're
emailing
5
me,
books into this. I
well,
imagine
I
if
mean,
they
that's
weren't
true.
responding
Yeah,
to
that's another good sign, isn't it? Yes, absolutely. I'm 5 books deep, and nobody's kind of, writing blog posts or whatever saying, "Gosh, when is FD Lee ever gonna like shut up about this thing?" But you never know. I mean, as with all things, you don't know, and people are usually, on the whole, not always, but on the whole, if somebody doesn't like something, they're usually too polite to tell you anyway. So you
telling it to
tend
your
to only hear
face,
from
yeah.
people that like it. Yeah, you know. But
This is
yeah,
this is why when it comes to, like, writers reading their own reviews, I have mixed feelings
mm,
because on the one hand, yes, book readers and reviewers deserve their own space free of writers' judgment, feelings, emotions, reactions.
yeah,
But on the other hand, we need feedback. We need to know, like, obviously we have our sensitivity readers and our editors and whatnot, but, like, that is a very small sample size. We need to
oh,
see,
absolutely, yeah,
how is this
absolutely,
actually hitting the general public? Is it working? Where can I improve?
yeah.
What do they like? What do they not like? Because if that communication is severed, you very quickly lose your fans.
Yes, and it is a very tricky balance, I think. I definitely think that authors, and I mean, when this happens, it's quite the scandal, which makes me think it's not a common occurrence. But I do think it's inappropriate for authors to respond or reply to negative reviews.
Mm, yeah.
I very, very, very early in my career, it's still, obviously it's still public, it's on Goodreads. Somebody, like maybe the third or fourth person, wrote a review for The Fairy's Tale, and I can't remember, I think they mentioned spelling, which I at the time completely agreed with. I was like, no, you're right, that's fair. And I think I wrote something to that effect, like, thank you for telling me, I'll go back and check.
Mhm.
I certainly, to be honest with you, I'm quite a timid person, so I wouldn't have kind of fronted up to this person anyway. But I
Right.
wrote this kind of response. As I say, it's on Goodreads. I mean, everything is recorded, isn't it?
Yeah.
Um, Along the lines of saying, thanks for that. I'll double check or something. Um, and I've never responded to anything since. And I still think back to that pretty innocuous, pretty innocent response. But I still, if I had a time machine, I would go back to very early author faith and just say, just don't do it. Take the
Mm,
note, read what they've said, act
right.
on it, but don't respond. Um,
Interesting. Yeah.
because I think, absolutely, I think that reviewers, whether professional or hobbyist, they have to feel safe to like or dislike something without thinking that somebody's going to come and slam into them for it.
Yeah.
You know?
Early on in my mom's career, I
Mm.
don't know if she still does this, I don't think so, but, she is herself an author of paranormal romance, and obviously, when she came across a positive review of her book, she would this is back when she was on Twitter, when Twitter was actually still a decent place
Yes,
to
yes,
hang out,
somewhere you
you
might
know.
want to be. Yeah.
Right, she would share it on her Facebook page and her Twitter and be like, "Hey, this
Yeah,
person really
yeah,
like that type of
yeah.
thing," and then even if it was an average or a negative review, she would also share that one with, like, this person didn't really care much for my main character or whatever, but we still appreciate the fact that they marketed my book for free. Here's the review. If you have this person's taste in tropes and books,
That's,
then,
yes.
maybe steer clear. If you think this person is nuts, then maybe buy my book.
Well, that I think is, yes. So I I have a newsletter, and at the top of my newsletter, it's the banner, it never changes. At the top of my newsletter, it says something along the lines of liked the book, hated the book. Please leave a review because your review will let other people decide.
Yeah.
And I fully stand by that. I think a well-written negative review is actually just as useful as a well-written positive review. And at some point, potentially maybe more useful. Because if you get a negative review and it can explain what it didn't like about the book, then people that also won't enjoy that won't buy the book. And I don't want people buying the book and not enjoying it. There's no value
Yes.
for me. Like, the money I make from the sale of books over the internet is pennies on the pound. Like, I'm not going to
Yeah.
miss a meal if I lose. Well, I shouldn't say that, actually, because if I lose enough, no,
I
no, no.
know,
Let's
well, we want
everyone
people
buy
to
my
make
books and enjoy them. Buy my books and
right.
enjoy them. Buy
Um,
it. But do you know what
uh,
I mean? I think on balance, I would prefer. I would much prefer that people read them and love them as much as I love them than
yeah, we want
people.
informed decisions,
Yeah,
informed
exactly.
purchases.
I was at a convention up here in Scotland not too long ago, and my science fiction novel, this person came up, this fan came up and was sort of asking, they were curious about my sci-fi novel, in the slip, which the main character's job is a trans-temporal copyright protection officer. And this person, sounded really excited by it. And, they sort of went away and did their own thing. And then they came back and I said, "Oh, you're back. Hello." And they were like, "Oh, yes. Oh my gosh. I can't stop thinking about the premise of your trans book. I'm going to buy the trans book." And I said to them, "I just want to double check with you. When I say trans-temporal, I don't mean transsexual. I mean trans as in through time or between time, right?"
Oh, yep.
Um, and they were like, "Oh," and they were disappointed, right?
Mhm.
And I just said to them, I said, I'm not trying to do myself out of a sale, but if you're reading this because you want it to be this thing about this particular type of human being, and
Mhm.
he isn't,
Yeah.
and what I don't want you to buy this thinking you're buying something that it isn't, And that's exactly it. I've probably talked myself out of sales just as many times as I've talked myself into them at this point.
Well, as
Um,
someone with like
no.
5 years of sales experience, like it is honestly way better to do that and like to be honest than
Mm,
to make sales with dishonesty. Because if
I
you make sales
agree.
with dishonesty, that destroys you in the long term because then you come across as the slimy, almost con artist type of person.
Yeah, exactly that. No, exactly that. And I just think, I mean, ultimately for me anyway, my experience within books has been so important to me and so meaningful for me throughout my entire life, and has created for me huge friendships. I mean, for example, one of my absolute best friends in the entire world, we met when I was 15. And, she has gone on to be my best friend for life. She was maid of honor at my wedding. She chose the house that I now live in.
Okay.
We met in a book signing queue for Terry Pratchett. And
Yeah.
it's that whole thing, and I think it's very important to try and protect that. I think it's something that's very precious, and I think it's very important to protect it.
Yeah,
um
the genuineness and authenticity of who you are and what you've created. It's
I
funny
think
because
sort
my
of like
best
a
friend and I, we
world
have
around it as well, not just, sorry, I'm interrupting you, but yes, absolutely, the authenticity of what I've created, but it's more than that. It's about protecting the bubble that is loving books and making
mm,
friends. And
the
I don't know, I'm
fandom
getting a bit,
itself.
yeah, getting a bit kind of wishy-washy and a bit hippy-dippy
Mhm.
on it, but yes, I think it's something that is wonderful, and I think, you can't act in bad faith
Yeah,
and
no.
protect it at the same time.
Yeah, no. That way toxicity lies.
Yes.
It's I just think it's funny because my best friend that I met in college, She and I have very different tastes when it comes to books and fandoms. Like she's into like the romance, especially the romance and the romantasy, especially. And I
Mm-hmm,
am
mm-hmm.
not. Well, she also is one of my biggest cheerleaders too. So she has bought and read like all of my books and does enjoy them, which I do appreciate. But generally speaking, if she likes a book, I don't want anything to do with it. And if I like a book, she needs to be in a very particular mood for it.
No, I get though. I get that. I get that. And I've definitely got friends like that as well, where our Venn diagram of reading and fandom, like the overlap is quite small.
Yeah,
But
it's a
I think
sliver.
also, yeah, but also I think if you're the kind of person that in any way, shape, or form enjoys being a fan of something, then even if I don't get the exact thing, we have enough anyway because I get the passion and the enjoyment of it and the weird kind of like, oh my gosh, this thing is happening and it's 3 hours away on the train, but will you come with me? It's like, yeah, of course I'll come with you,
Hmm.
because I get it. Um, and that's what I mean. I think you do get people who act in very bad faith. Yeah, you do. I'm not going to name any names, partly because I don't think it's helpful, and partly because I can't think of any examples at the moment. But
Not
yeah,
on this channel.
yeah.
If you're gonna cast shade, you have to be certain that it's
Yeah,
that they
you have to know
deserve
what
the
you're
shade.
talking about. Yeah. I don't know. I'm not generally. Again, I don't know. I just don't see the point in it, to be honest with you.
Mhm.
Like, um, generally speaking, I tend not to involve myself in those things. There are a few areas where I have a very strong opinion and will be quite loud about it, but the sort of general kind of soap opera stuff, it's fine.
Makes sense.
Mm.
So obviously I was going through your website to prepare for this interview
Hmm.
because I'm at least trying to be a professional about all this. Um, I noticed that, you call yourself a feminist and your cast
Hmm.
of characters tends to reflect that, often with, very powerful women as well as men who are all over the board in terms of masculinity and femininity. Have you received a lot of pushback for that, especially in the current political climate?
No, not. That's an interesting question. Not particularly. Received I have received pushback because I'm quite vocal about trans rights on my social media.
Mm. Oh,
Um,
same.
yeah, oh yeah, well then you'll get an idea what I'm talking about. I'm vocal about that, and I'm quite vocal about my dislike of prominent authors. And
Mm.
I've certainly got some resistance to that, but nothing overwhelming. Like, I'm not famous enough to get doxxed or anything like that, so no, not really. Um
Not famous enough yet.
yes, give it time, give it time. Yeah, absolutely. That's when I'll know I've made it. I was on a panel at a Comic-Con in London at some point in my past. I'm thinking back now. It's a long time ago. But I was on a panel at a Comic-Con, and the panel was about diversity in fiction, which is why I'd been asked to join it.
Mm.
Um, and I was talking, exactly that. I was talking about my characters and what I try my best to do as best I can. Um, and I was talking about one of my characters who suffers a serious accident and ends up in a wheelchair as a result. And I was talking about how, trying to make that work in the sort of medieval fantasy world that I have, going through the processes of him making the castle accessible and stuff like that for his wheelchair. And just chatting through, and it's quite a fun thought. I thought it was quite a fun thought experiment in a way. Like, how do you
Yeah.
do this? in
with
a
the
manner.
technology at the time, and it's like, but like, you know,
Yeah,
how much money do you have and can you do it? Or like, do you just move all of the necessary rooms to the first floor? Or,
exactly.
but like,
Yeah.
how does that play with like social status where like, you know, the lord of the house always takes the important guests up to the top floor? And like, do you have magic? Can you like have magical elevator teleporty things that just do that? Like that's really
Yeah,
fun to
exactly.
think
Yeah,
about.
yeah, yeah. Exactly. All of that. So
System
I'm
maybe.
exactly, yeah, exactly. So I'm kind of, I'm on this panel sort of rabbiting away about the scene in the book where they install essentially they install like a Stanner stair lift. I don't know if you have the same name in America, like an electric chairlift that goes up the staircase.
Oh, yeah. I don't know what we call it, but I do know what you're talking
You
about.
know what I'm talking about. So they kind of create a steam powered one of those, and the scene is they're kind of road testing it using a pig, and this poor pig kind of goes flying through the air. The pig is fine, nothing, pig is fine,
I
but
mean, if
this,
the pig isn't fine, then you just have bacon and pork for dinner that night.
well,
Win-win.
this exactly becomes part of John and Anna's conversation, as they're like kind of watching these experiments with these poor pigs just kind of flying everywhere as the I don't know, castle mechanics or whatever trying to get this steam standers there. It's a very short little scene, and as with all things in writing, the short little scene necessitates weeks and weeks of
Oh yeah.
thinking and research and working all of this stuff out, and speaking to people who are disabled in one way or another, either in a wheelchair, or they need to use crutches or a scooter, or blah 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 blah. So I'm talking on this panel quite happily, chitter chattering away and laughing at my own jokes about trying to do this thing, and it gets to the end and the Q&A comes, and this person, they put their hand up and they were literally like, don't you feel like you're just forcing diversity into your books for the sake of it?
Everyone
And
knows that disabled people just did not
I mean,
exist before
yeah,
the Americans with
absolutely.
Disability Act in the 1980s.
Yeah, isn't it? No, isn't it? Exactly that. There's the meme on the internet, isn't it? Which is like, why do disabled people have to come out during the day? Why can't they do their shopping at night when they're not in the way of people? And the sort of person in the meme comments, and he's like, I'm a wheelchair user. I'm not a werewolf,
I know, right? Oh, that was
Yeah.
such a great clapback. I
Oh,
loved
it's so
that.
good. Yeah, so this person kind of just, I don't know, asked this absolutely ridiculous question. But I'm at Comic-Con, which is big,
Mhm.
and I'm maybe two and a half books into my career at this point, and this is like baby FD Lee,
Mhm.
right? And
The
this is like
baby
quite
author.
yeah, baby author, and this is quite a big break for me, Comic-Con,
Mhm.
wow. So he asked this question, and I swear, my jaw dropped, and I just looked at, I mean, I must have, it felt in my mind subjectively that I just stared at him for about him. I think it was a him, but anyway, stared at them for about like 10 minutes, just like, hmm? I hope objectively it was maybe half a second, but subjectively it felt like years. And I was just like, because people exist and I want them to exist in my book. And that was the answer that I gave. I was like, because these people, different people exist, and
Mhm.
so they would exist in my world, because they
And it
do, and
makes
they
the
are.
world and story more interesting.
Oh yes, I mean, you're not going to have flying pigs if you're not trying to create a steam-powered Stanner stair lift. That's yeah. Anyway, da 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 da. Um, And so it cast a bit of a pall. I mean, this is obviously like the most ridiculous thing to worry about in the world, but it cast a bit of a pall over that experience for me at the time, because I finished the panel and I sort of went off and I was like, gosh, that was a really awful question. And I was thinking, after the fact, of 100,000 ways I could have answered more, I don't know, better, right, than just saying,
Mhm.
well, these people exist, and I want them to exist in my book, right? Which is a very true answer, but it's not exactly a massive takedown, is it?
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I don't know. Apart from that, which happened so very long ago, I haven't experienced any pushback on the kind of politics and principles that inform my writing. I mean, I definitely write from a very feminist place. I write from a very queer place. I write from a very left wing. What do you say in America? Is it leftist in America? I don't. You
Yeah,
don't.
left
Did you
wing,
say wing? I
liberal.
don't know if you have wing in it. I mean, we would like left
We
wing.
don't really say wings. We just usually not. I mean, we like if you say left wing or right wing, people will know what you're talking about.
Okay.
It's
Yeah.
usually the left or versus the right is how
Okay.
we
Yeah.
typically do. At least that's how Fox News puts it.
Well, I mean that's clearly the
That is
the
obviously the
legitimate
correct way to
source.
do it, and anybody who questions it will be sent to the gulag.
Oh my gosh,
I
yes.
shouldn't even joke
Right.
about that. It's going to be true in like 5 years.
It's yeah, it's terrifying. I mean, absolutely. I'm not going to stand on a soapbox here because the UK isn't a brilliant place right now by any stretch of the imagination, and I'm not sure how many steps we are behind you, if I'm honest. But
Hmm.
I mean, yeah, definitely. You know, you watch the news and just think, I yikes, wow,
Hmm.
what?
Did we learn
Um,
nothing from the 1930s and 40s? Your lord.
no, 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 isn't it? No, we didn't. No, we didn't. It's I mean, it's not America. I think is kind of the kind of shining example of this, but it's not limited to America. This
Yeah,
kind of
yeah,
swing to the right. It's
we
happening
do
in
tend
lots
to be
of
pretty
places.
insular in terms of like how what type of news we consume, but I have noticed that okay, a few other spots in Europe are also kind of doing this song and dance. That's fun. That's great.
Yes, exactly that. Yes, exactly that. It's I think America is in the spotlight, and there's a lot of reasons why that's so. But it's
Hmm.
certainly it's not dancing on its own, if you see what I mean.
Yeah, no, no, we have
Mm,
too many nukes. We can't.
yeah.
Um, Anyway, so I have a couple of questions from my patrons over on Patreon. If you
Oh
would
yes,
like
please.
to, yeah, if you would like to ask future interviewees questions, please consider becoming a patron through the link down in the description of this video. So, you were very upfront, and I thank you for this. But the fact that you have that you are autistic, you got ADHD, you've got a few things
Dyslexia.
on the check.
Yeah.
Dyslexia too. Dang.
Dyslexia and
Um,
dyspraxia. Yeah. I'm literally collecting neurodiversities like they're Pokemon at the moment.
that's
Yeah.
kind of how it goes. It's so rare for someone to have just one diagnosis. You really
Yeah.
do have to catch them all.
Yeah.
And I'm actually really glad that you're upfront about that because I get asked from my neurodivergent fans about my writing routine and writing tips and tricks and all that stuff. And I'm like, the way that you're describing the way your brain works is not how my brain works. I can just tell you what I do, and I don't think that'll work for you. You can
Mm,
try it.
mm.
But you're here, and obviously every autistic and ADHD person thinks and operates the same. So what is
Absolutely.
your writing routine like?
We are
Um,
one singular canvas. Yes.
exactly. The person specifically asks, "What is your writing routine like?" I know my autistic ADHD brain likes both spontaneity and routine, so wondering how you juggle that.
My brain is the same, so I guess that's a good starting point. The truth is, this is a great answer. I've been thinking about this, and I don't really have a perfect answer. Um, I kind of swing between moments of absolutely crazed hyperfocus,
Mhm.
um, which can be very beneficial. So I did my PhD and worked and wrote my second novel at the same time over about 2.5 years. Um, and I look back at that now and I think to myself, that's not how a normal person would approach
It's
any of
not
those things.
great, but you know, you
You
gotta
know.
do. What's your PhD in anyway?
Uh, it's in the the way in which fiction controls and creates belief as explored through the representation of women in high fantasy.
Well, I don't see how that overlaps with your books at all.
No, I mean, no, that's true. That they were very contra to each other. But yeah, no. So I that so my hyper focus. I guess I say that to sort of exemplify what my hyper focus can be like when it latches on. Um, which can be very, very helpful. It can be absolutely awful because sometimes it catches on to things that I don't really want it to, and it gets in the way.
Mm,
Um, so what I found to kind of counter that or balance that is I am a member of a collective of writers in the UK called New Street Authors, and part of being part of that collective has given me a writing schedule. So we all meet at the same time. We have writing periods. They're usually about 2 hours. Sometimes they stretch to 3 hours. And we sign onto the Zoom. We don't talk to each other. You sign in, you say hello, and then you mute everything. But I
mhm.
found that the responsibility of that has been very helpful to me. When I was kind of promising myself, oh, I'll get up tomorrow at 6 o'clock in the morning and I'll do however many hours, or whatever the kind of the self promise was. Sometimes I would do it and sometimes I wouldn't. And then on the days that I didn't do it, I used to beat myself up and feel so guilty and da ba da ba da. But I think for me, what helps is owing that responsibility to other people. So
Gotcha.
having the mixture of the routine, this happens on these, it's Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, it happens on these set days at this set time, is very helpful for kind of the sort of ADHD side of myself that would flit around and go away.
Mhm.
And I think the sort of the fact that it's a rule and it's something that we do, and it has that kind of, for me, that kind of obligation built into it. It's not obligatory, I should say. I don't get told off if I don't show up or anything, but this is
Right.
how my
Yeah, but it's
brain
a little
works.
bit of peer pressure, a little bit
Yeah,
of they're
exactly.
gonna know.
Yeah. This is the rule. This is I'm my autism is very much grounded in these are the rules of the situation. Um and I get very lost and very confused and sometimes very angry if the rules of the situation aren't followed, you know? Like,
Yeah, I get I hear that. And it
so
sounds also
it's
like the
helpful for
fact that
me.
it's with it sounds like it's, the fact that it's with a group of other authors that are also neurodivergent is also particularly helpful.
No, I don't know if they are actually. I no, I don't. It's not specifically for neurodivergent authors at all. It's just
Oh,
it's
I
just a
misheard.
no. Sorry, I New Street Authors
Gotcha.
is the title of the group. No, that's probably my accent getting in the way because
I mean, I'm an American, all accents
well,
sound the same. Speak
English.
American, damn it.
Oh my god! No, I'm not even going to try. It's just going to offend everyone. But
Yeah, that's me with accents too. Like I was literally filming the other day the Halloween special for like the next 2 weeks, and there it centers on a family that originates in Guatemala, and they
mm,
hire other Latinas and Hispanics, both in from the country, this country itself, and also who have crossed the border in their lifetime. And I was thinking to myself, I'm not even gonna try to do the type of accent here is just gonna piss everyone off. The only accents I can do with any sense of like authenticity, or at the very least no offense, is a northern Minnesota or Canadian accent, because it's just an exaggeration of my accent.
Ah, okay.
Um
So what's the northern Minnesota accent?
oh, well, that's the you really draw out your O's, and it's like when you're watching Fargo from
Fargo!
that. Yes,
Fargo! Yes, it's the Fargo accent.
that area
Okay.
is like 3-4 hours north of where I live. And you go like it's not as if you're in the cities, it's not as noticeable. But if you're in the more rural air parts of the northern Midwest and especially Canada, yeah, you can hear that. And then I can also do the actual Southerners know that like it's not my real accent, that it's a fake Southern accent, but I can still kind of do a Southern accent
Like
that
the
at the very
southern
least is.
US.
Yeah, so, it's like Virginia, Mississippi, Louisiana type of like that kind
That's
of
a
by myself.
lovely accent, though. I love that southern
It
US
is. Oh,
accent.
it is. It's so beautiful to like, especially
Mm,
the more eastern, like the southeast, because like each state also kind of has their own accent, which
of
is like,
course,
there's
yes, of
southern,
course.
and then like Texas southern is different from Virginia southern, which is different from Alabama southern. Like,
Oh, the Alabama accent. Oh, I love it. I love it
or
so
or,
much.
like, you go into like, New Orleans. I've been to New Orleans a couple of
Mm.
times. I've tried to talk to people with
No,
Creole
no,
accents.
no.
I'm like, "You sound phenomenal. I can't understand a word you're saying." Like, I know we're both speaking English here, but we're really not.
What's going on? Yeah, no, we my spouse and I went to the southern US for our honeymoon. We did a road trip.
Mm,
So we landed in I might need to pull up Google Maps actually, to help me. We landed in Florida
okay,
and we went up to Georgia. Then we
okay.
went across to Alabama. Let me take you've had you on a big screen. Hold on, I need to pull up a map. Google Maps America, because I don't want to be on an American podcast and then get it all wrong, you know? So what did we do? Hang on, here we
Honestly,
go.
you already know our geography better than most Americans. We're not great.
Oh, I can't do my geography like the UK. You never know
Oh
where
my
you
gosh.
are.
Yeah, no,
So
I
we
know generally
did
speaking, like London, Wales, Scotland, and Ireland is about all I know.
that. To be honest, that's not far off what I know. So we started in Florida. We
Hmm.
went up to Georgia. We went
Hmm.
to Alabama, Mississippi. Then we drove down Mississippi and ended up in New Orleans.
Yeah, okay. Which
And
is the
yeah,
capital of Louisiana.
Louisiana. So Louisiana,
Yeah.
there we go. And
You can always identify Louisiana just by its shape. It looks like an L.
that's so helpful. Oh, I love
Hmm.
that. That's so helpful. But yeah, no, the yeah, every accent and variation, localization that we passed along the way. I love it. It's a beautiful accent. I really do. I think it's a wonderful accent. But no, I'm the same as you. The minute I even attempt an accent, it's basically a hate crime. Like
I
I
know,
just
right? Like I've got a
steer
Scottish
well clear.
character, the Wolver, and I'm just like, I tried it a little bit, and that with the cameras off, and I'm just like, no, this sounds horrible.
No,
all of the Scots are gonna wage war on me, and they will be right to do so. It's just gonna be that bad.
isn't it? No, absolutely. And I'm picking up because we've lived in Edinburgh now for about 5 years. And so of course I'm picking up bits of vocabulary and so on
Hmm.
and so forth. And it sounds so strange coming out of my mouth without the accent behind it.
Yeah. Yeah, no,
Um,
there are some words or some like, it's like, the closest thing that I can really think of is like reading or listening to Dracula, the book. Like, unless you can only hear it in a posh English accent.
Absolutely. Received pronunciation all the way.
Hmm. Yeah,
Yes.
no,
Yes.
it's
Absolutely, darling. But no, accents are such fun. I'm quite, this is a mixed bag, isn't it? This is privilege, accent privilege. I'm quite lucky because my sort of natural speaking voice is pretty close to received pronunciation. I'm not quite as plummy as my grandmother would have liked. I remember growing up, I would do the kind of, because this is so boring for your listeners unless they're accent fiends. So I was born in Dorset, which is a county down south in England by the sea, and
Okay.
it's farmer country.
Okay.
And so when I was growing up, when I was little, I had a very strong Dorset accent. I used to talk a lot like this. Got a very strong Dorset
It
accent.
sounds almost like a Southern US accent.
It's interesting, isn't it? It does make you wonder, like you could probably follow community or dysphoria or whatever movement to
It does
different
because like
places.
a lot of the English settlers tended to go like obviously they kind of went all over the place when they were colonizing the states, but like they did tend to go more towards the southern states for the cash crops, whereas
Mm,
a lot of a
Dutch,
lot of
right?
everyone
Yeah.
else, Scots, Irish, everywhere else in Europe, especially the Northern Europes and Northern Europeans and the Germans, they tended to gravitate more toward the northern cities, and they all kind of melted together.
Mm,
So yeah, no, that oh my God, that makes sense. Okay, sorry, my inner history nerd is just
no,
like,
I love it. No, I love it. This is so geeky for me. I love it so much. I love it so much. So in New York State. Now I'm really
mhm,
scraping my brain here because I did this on my master's degree is in applied linguistics.
okay,
And one of the modules of that was to do with accent. And one of the things that I was particularly interested in was like sociolinguistic and accent privilege. There is a there is a place in New York State,
mhm,
and I'm going back like 15 years of my life now. This is so sketchy, but it's basically like an accent time capsule. So they
mm,
speak essentially the British English that was common when they first came
yeah.
over in like I don't know
It must
17
be like
1800.
in upstate or western state part of the state where it's like more rural and like
Yes, it's
nobody
very
really
kind
goes
of
in or out.
isolated. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it has to be to have not had kind of
Mm.
accent change, right? It's on YouTube. If tell you what, if I remember more details, I'll email you.
You're gonna
Um,
remember as soon as we stop this interview.
of course I am. Absolutely, of course I am. But it's yeah, I was watching these videos and it's fascinating because they are absolutely unintelligible to me. And yet they're speaking the English because it's not
That your
American
ancestors
English.
spoke.
Yeah,
Yeah, that
it's
is
not American English. It's it's
mm,
it's pure. Well, pure again. That's a
right.
loaded word, but
It really is.
it's very authentic British English, time capsuled from
Circa
the
the
date
'17th,
they
18th
left.
century. Jesus,
Yeah,
that's insane.
and nobody here speaks it like that. That accent, that vocabulary. I mean, bits and pieces live on as kind of like
Mhm.
fossilized language and idioms and things like that, but I mean, by and large, I think I caught maybe one word in every 15, and I certainly couldn't catch the overall meaning. It's just,
Dang.
fascinating.
It's
Amazing.
so I'll say one last thing about accents, then we'll move on to the actual questions that people
Oh, yeah,
want to
sorry,
talk
I was
about.
talking. See,
Um,
now look, too, sorry, just for a second, just to go back to your Patreon supporter who asked this question, how do you do it? The last, I think, 10 minutes where I started on your question and now I'm here, probably tells you that I'm as successful as I am on any given day. You know?
Look, sometimes you just
Yeah.
gotta ride the dopamine. If
It's
so, like suddenly, and I'm very familiar with the like
amazing,
you're gonna write a whole like chapter or scene or whatever in the story that like just goes into the whole world building aspect that you're really excited about, and then you're going to delete this whole thing later or
Oh
reduce
my
it to a
God,
line or
I have
two in the
cut.
next one.
What I will say though, as a spark of hope, this is something I do think is good advice. I'm making a face. This isn't going to show, but for everyone listening,
She was making this
I'm
is some good advice, and then her face said maybe.
yeah, exactly this. Um, Nothing is ever wasted. So I've done
Yeah.
exactly that. I've gotten into the zone, the hyper focus has kicked in. I've gone into this kind of bizarre, like fugue state, and then come out of it at some point and reread what I've written. And I've been like, this is great, but it's completely useless. I can't do
Yep.
anything with this. But I just cut it, put it into another Word document, save it on my Dropbox. And you know what? So many times over the course of, I've been writing for about 10 years now. And so many times I've thought, hang on, I wrote something like this. And I've gone back into, it's called my spares file in my Dropbox.
Mm-hmm.
And I found it and I've been like, oh, I can just, a few
Copy
tweaks.
paste it back
Gosh,
here.
yeah.
Yeah, I do
Nothing's
that
ever
too.
wasted.
It makes you a much more ruthless and frankly better editor, and it also means that if you end up not putting it back in the manuscript, you now have deleted scenes that you can share with like your patrons or other your newsletter
Yes,
or other such
that's
activities and all
exactly
that
true.
stuff.
So that's what you get if you join my newsletter. You get
Yeah.
access to deleted scenes and short stories and the
Mhm.
research, which I think I mean, obviously I think it, but the research that goes into each of the books
Yeah,
and
no,
things like
they're
that. So
not
yeah,
all the fans
nothing's
like that, but
wasted.
they're the ones that do tend to be the hyper focusing crowd.
Really
So
like
it's like,
it.
here you
Yeah,
go, here's something else for you
absolutely.
to hyper focus on for the next week.
I think so.
Go
And it
nuts.
makes me feel good. I'm like, even if
Oh
nobody
yeah.
ever dips their toe into the research that went into, like, the second book is plays on Gothic 18th century kind of Gothic horror tropes.
Mm,
And I had so much fun researching
yeah.
that. And it's like, do you know what? If nobody ever even looks at it, it's such fun for me to have this little repository that is kind of, oh, and this is the journal article, and this is the study, and this is the genre analysis, and this was the historical context, and this was the social context, and
Yeah.
da ba da ba da. Yeah.
Yeah. All that jazz.
No,
So
nothing's
one
ever
last thing about
wasted.
accents, and then we'll move
Sorry,
on.
yes, yes, go back, go back.
So I don't know if you've heard, we call it the Great Migration, and it's
Mm,
when
mm.
all of the, not all of them, but so many millions of Black Americans in the South moved to northern and western cities, both to escape Jim Crow laws and also to go toward better opportunities in the northern cities. It started with World War I, when northern cities were like, they encouraged this. They're like, we've got factories, we got a war to fight. Like, yes, let's get this labor up in this house to do that. And then after the war, they were like, okay, you can all go back home now to the place where you'll be lynched if you look at someone wrong. Um, that obviously that didn't work, and so people kept coming up to northern cities, and this is why cities like Chicago and Milwaukee and New York have such high Black populations, is because of this. Well, New York City was obviously a big destination for a lot
Mm.
of people living in like the eastern, so Florida, North and South Carolina, those spots. But there is a spot fairly close on the way to New York. It's a place called Newark, New Jersey.
Okay.
Newark.
Okay. Yeah.
Newark. And because, like, the way that so many Southerners pronounced, and still in many ways pronounced, New York City, it sounds a lot like Newark City. So what would happen is all these so many of these Black families would be going up the trains, and then they would hear the train conductor or the radio or whatever say, now entering Newark, and they would think, oh, we're here, great,
Oh.
and they would get off in New Jersey when they were going for New York City, and it would take them a little while. It wouldn't be, they would figure out their mistake pretty quickly. And while some of them moved on to their actual destination, quite a few just stayed. They're like, you know
Yeah,
what,
sure.
this is fine.
Yeah, sure. I can get
I
work.
read that.
Yeah.
I read that in it's this great book about the Great Migration called The Warmth of Other Suns. Um, really good work on that. And I remember reading that and just going, that is adorable. That is the best thing that I've ever read from this book. That is phenomenal.
That no, that is absolutely no, absolutely. And it's just one of those, gosh, history turns so often on happenstance, you
I
know?
know.
Oh, I love
It's
it.
just
Yeah.
bizarre.
No, and I love it. And
Huh.
I love this thing with accents about, like you were saying earlier, you know, when I was doing my Dorset accent, you were like, oh, that sounds like this, and you can kind of connect, as I say, you
Hmm.
can sort of connect all the dots. And vocabulary is another really fun one.
Yeah.
I was looking up a word recent for the book I'm writing at the moment. I was looking up how to spell a word. Yeah, I don't
Hmm.
know how to spell
Yeah.
this word. I was looking up how to spell it. And it took me ages to actually even spell it in a way that Google realized what it was I was looking for.
Oh
And
yeah, I've had that happen.
yeah. So I was looking for the word, and I mean, I now know that this is such a localized piece of vocabulary, and I had just thought this was. I mean, I assumed it was British English, but I had assumed it was pretty standard British English.
Hmm.
Um, and the word is gawped, and it means people are staring at you, right?
Oh, gawking. Yeah.
No, not
They
gawking. Nah, not gawking. Gawping.
gorping.
Yeah,
GORP.
this is what I was trying to find out. I now know GAWP. Gawping.
Okay, so it's spelled like gawking, but you replaced the K with a P.
Yeah, so
Okay.
yeah, I guess so. Yeah, I guess so. I guess so. And yeah, actually, do you know what? That's very handy. I might actually just change the word to gawking in the book
Hmm.
because more people are going to know what it is. But to me, that is a absolutely standard bit of vocabulary. And yeah, you know, clearly it's not. Clearly it's
Yeah.
not. And then, you know, the English language is such a bastard language, you know, like
Hmm.
it's French and Scandinavian and German and you know,
It's a
gosh
Frankenstein.
knows. Yeah, it's a
It's a
Frankenstein.
Frankenstein.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Um, I used to teach English as a foreign language for many years, which is a fantastic career. I loved it so much. Um, and you know, you learn kind of shortcuts and things like that with language just on the job because you have to try and explain things to people, you know.
Hmm.
Kind of say it's no good telling somebody, sometimes it's no good telling somebody the literal meaning of a word because it's not actually useful. You
Yeah.
need to kind of get them to understand the socio meaning of the word, otherwise they're
Yeah.
going to go out and, you know, use it incorrectly and so on and so forth. And yeah, through that you just learn, you know, particularly I must be the same in America, but obviously I don't have the experience. But you particularly learn in the UK how much influence the bit of your UK was invaded by matters.
Hmm.
So I'm down south, so we were invaded a lot by the Normans, by the French, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And
That makes sense.
yeah, and now I'm up here, and obviously, I mean, Scotland's always been very difficult to invade, to be fair. But where it
Stubborn
has,
jerks. Let
yeah, like
me
the Romans
invade it,
gave
damn it.
up, baby. The Romans were like, I ain't touching that, and understandably so. Beautiful country, but yeah, if you're used to the Mediterranean climate, and then you know your legionnaire officer is like, right, off you pop, and you come to this kind of misty, soggy kind. Yeah, no. But you know, so you've got the northern England that is much more influenced by kind of Norse and you know what is now
Mm,
Scandinavia, but you know Norse kind of language, and then there's everything in between because you've got bits of German and what
mhm,
fascinates me is how like the social strata has stayed with the language. So for a long time, historically, what we would call English was the language of the peasant folk, and the people in power only
spoke
spoke French.
French.
Yeah,
Yep.
exactly that. Exactly that. And of course, over time and politically, you know, we fell out of favor with the French and blah, blah, blah. Or the French
Mhm.
fell out of favor with us. I think it was pretty mutual.
Well, even
Um,
even when we were trying to kill each other, like French was still considered the superior
I mean, and
language
I
of
think
Europe
it's
as a whole, but especially
no,
England.
and I think it's still, I think French still retains that
Oh yeah,
historically, that language of intelligence and class and so on and
yeah.
so forth.
But it wasn't
So,
until I think at least Henry VIII, if
no,
not
I mean,
beyond.
arguably, I know, arguably, I would say arguably still now. For example, a lot of the language, again, I have to say in British English, because I couldn't speak for American, but a lot of the language in British English that is linked to formality or class or
Yeah,
intelligence.
I took French for 5 years, and the amount of overlap is like
Yeah,
40 to 60% of our language is straight up French. And I
yeah.
did
So
note that
the
generally
root
speaking,
of
if you're using a French word for something, like the English equivalent of it, if you just use the French word, it's the fancier English
absolutely,
equivalent to it.
yeah, exactly that, and it's more formal, and so I work in a university now, and excuse me, and a lot of my work is helping students kind of make the transition into academic English.
Mm,
And, you know, a lot of the words that are appropriate for academic English have French roots or
yeah.
Latin roots or Romance roots. Whereas a lot of what is arguably standard English, or, you know, again, I'm putting the finger quotes up for
Right.
me,
Yeah, the quote unquote
has,
lower English.
yeah, has Germanic roots. And it's
Well, even our
fascinating.
swear words, like the Normans saw what, like it used to be that the word shit was like that was just yeah I'm okay yeah no he's pooping like that's
Yeah,
fine and the Normans thought that's so vile that's a swear word now.
yeah. And it's fascinating. It's absolutely fascinating. I love it, and I'm desperately trying to think of a really clear example now. And of course, once again, I cannot
Yeah,
think of
no,
it.
I've also been struggling a little bit, but like
Yeah,
you're about to go to bed. I'm just getting up.
well, yeah.
Time zones are not in our
Beef,
favor here.
beef is a good one. So the animal is
Yes.
cow, which is Germanic in origin, but the food, the expensive meat, is
Hmm.
beef, which is French in origin. So it's so subtle. Like some of it's very distinct and very obvious, but a
Hmm.
lot of it is incredibly subtle. And yeah, I love
For
it.
more information about this, I would recommend oversimplified's video on the Battle of Hastings because
Okay.
the majority of the video is okay. Here are all the major players. Here's how why William showed up. Blah blah blah. But the end of that video, the last 5 minutes, because the video is titled "How One Battle Changed the English Language." The last 5 minutes are all about like here is how Norman
Mm.
French merged with Old English in ways that we still use today.
We
And he
still feel it
specifically said
today.
out in the fields, the English peasants had a whole lot of cows, cattle and cows, sheep and chickens, or pigs. But once they hit the Norman dinner tables, they became beef,
Pork and yeah,
mutton and pork and all this.
yeah.
And it was really cool to see that. So I do recommend for anyone listening who wants to check that out. A
No,
final
it's
question.
fascinating. Oh, sorry, I'm
Yeah.
still I'm on my
A
vibe
final
now
question,
with
which I think
language.
is absolutely perfect for what we've been talking about. How do you keep from getting disinterested or distracted from a writing project? I have had an idea for a project that I'll start to write, I'll get distracted from it, then forget it exists until a year later when I'm going through my files. So you tell me, Faith, how do you keep from getting distracted from writing projects or conversations about writing projects?
I again for the benefit of the recorder, I've got my very thinking face on. I'm really thinking about this
It's very
because
serious.
yeah, no, I mean, I'm sorry, I don't know if I answered the last question very well, so I'm going to try and do better with this one. Um, I think it's a time scale thing. So in the moment, I'm dreadfully easy to distract. Again, I suspect this interview may be like evidence one of that statement, you know?
Exhibit A.
Exhibit A, yeah, exactly that. No, I think in the moment I'm very easily distracted. But over time, I'm quite bloody minded. I'm quite stubborn in the sense that if I start something, I want to finish it. And I don't know if this is the thing with having neurodiversities, is I sort of, because I was diagnosed late in life. And one of the things that I'm kind of thinking about now is I don't quite know how to disambiguate what is the neurodiversity and what is me. And I think
Right.
I'm coming to the conclusion that there's no point. They're the same thing.
Yeah.
So I don't know if the bloody mindedness is something that just faith has, or if it's something that comes from one of these things, but it's all how my brain is wired. And I think, so your questioner was saying, I'll come back to it a year later and find it in a file. I do the same, absolutely do the same. So I'm not stuck, that sounds negative, but I want to finish the Pathways Tree series. I've got one book to write. It finishes on book 6 and I want to finish it. And I'm currently writing the end of another series. So right now I'm writing the end of my science fiction series and then I'll swap over. But I have about 5 or 6 that I want to pick up afterwards. And I will. That's the answer, is I will. And I don't think it matters particularly if you have an idea and you pop it away for a year or 2 years or 3 years. I have ideas that I filed 2, 3, 4, 5 years ago because I
Same.
knew I wanted to finish these books first. I have to, otherwise I won't.
Mhm.
Like, I have to, because
I think
otherwise
that's
I
just a
won't.
writer thing, not a neurodivergent thing, because I do the
Mm.
exact same thing.
Yeah. So, I mean, my answer to your question would be, I don't think it matters, in the information you've given me. If you have an idea and, you pop it away for a bit and then you only remember it when you come back to it, that to me is fine. Right? It's fine. Like, I'm the arbitrator of what is right or wrong. But, to me, that's normal. That's what I
Give
would
us
do,
the
I
judgment
guess.
of the neurodivergent writers
Absolutely.
all
I
over the
am the
world.
queen, the
Your
queen.
rule is law.
Yeah, absolutely. Uh, I found out a while back, this is such a divergent, but I found out a while back that there is apparently a corner of the internet in which I am the queen of the gay fairies,
Mm.
which I've never been more delighted by anything in my life. A fan came up to me at a convention, having seen me on a panel, and went, "Oh my god, I didn't know you were FD Lee." And I'm like, "Oh, I am. Hi." And they were like, "Oh, I know you." And I was like, "Cool, great. Have you read my books?" "Oh no, I've never read your books, but there's this group that I'm like I don't know, like a Discord or a Reddit or something. And you're the queen of the gay fairies. I keep meaning to buy your book." And I was like, "Okay, that's awesome. I've never been happier to be the queen of anything in my life."
You need to put that on your business card and your resume right now.
Right? Yeah, I know. So yes, I am the queen now of neurodivergent writing skills. So what I say is law. But no, I think you just have to be bloody minded. I think you have to be, maybe now isn't the right moment for that story, but it's a story, it's a good idea. And you need to be very bloody minded in the sense of, yes, I'm doing it now. Now is its time. And you do the thing. And I actually don't think this is a neurodivergent thing per se. I think because I'm quite like I do workshops and things about writing skills and stuff like this. And I post a lot of information about writing skills on my Facebook or in my newsletter or on my Tumblr or whatever. Like I want to grow this community because I want to read more books.
Mhm.
And I think one of the things that I get asked all the time, is, how do you do it? How do you sit? How do you write? how do you find the time, especially if it's not your full-time job? Writing isn't my full-time
Yeah.
job. It's not. I one day maybe I'll make enough money, but right now it doesn't make me enough money to be my full-time job. And you have to be bloody minded, and you have to be selfish. And I think, you read a lot of advice columns where people will say things like, set a calendar, have a schedule, do this, do that, do the other. And to some extent, I don't know how helpful that is, because, you can set a calendar, you can spend hours, making the most beautiful color coordinated schedule thing. And then the
Mm.
kid is sick, or
Yeah.
like, this is my neurodivergent thing. I don't feel it. It's not happening for me that day. I call them dead duck days. I pronounce duck very carefully for the video. And if I'm having a dead duck day, nothing's happening. It's just not.
Mm.
I'm watching TV. I'm watching She-Ra. That's it. I'm drinking tea. I'm watching She-Ra. That's the day. And that's where scheduling and stuff goes wrong. This is kind of actually an answer to the first question as well. I do schedule. I do have these fixed times, and in general, 90% of the time, they have been hugely helpful to me. But they're not a one size fits all. They don't always work. Sometimes I sign in and I sign out after half an hour because I'm like, this isn't happening for me. And I think the real trick, neurodivergent or not, is you have to be bloody minded, and you do have to be selfish with your time.
Mm.
And I see a lot of advice columns from people who will give, largely good advice. It's not that the advice they give is bad. I think a lot of it is very helpful and has been very helpful to me. But the thing that I think people don't say is you have to be stubborn, you have to be bloody minded, and you have to be selfish.
Yeah.
And my spouse James, when I first started writing, he hated it. He was incredibly resentful of it. He really was. Like, it made our relationship very difficult and very tense, because I was doing this thing that was hugely important to me, and from his perspective, his partner had disappeared, because that's the reality. I was working, full time. So I would get up about 5 o'clock in the morning. I would write, I would go to work, I would come home, and I would write again. And potentially a less neurodivergent person might actually stop and have dinner and some television programs in the middle, but I didn't.
Mm.
I would write, go and do the job to get the money, come home, sit and write, stop maybe at 10, have a slice of toast, go to bed. And I understand completely why he was resentful, because he basically lost me for a year. And, absolute credit to him. He never said anything while it was going on. He just provided me with cups of tea and toast. He was so supportive. But when it had finally finished and I had my first book, he was like, if you're going to do this, you can't do it like this, because I haven't existed for a year. And it's like, okay, I understand that, and we need to find a way that I can do this, but I am going to be selfish with my time, and you are, to a degree, going to stop existing for me. That's the reality, and there's no point pretending otherwise, because you cannot exist, and my friends cannot exist, and me get this thing done. And that's
Yeah.
the reality of it. Another, case in point is, I was writing a scene or a book or something like that. I was stuck in, and realized about an hour too late that I was supposed to be at dinner with all my friends.
Whoops. You got
Yeah,
sucked in.
yeah, they were really pissed off with me. Like, I don't want to swear on your YouTube channel, but they were,
I swear on this channel all the fucking time. No
oh
one
my
cares.
God, they were so fucking insanely angry with me, and rightly so. Again, I do not hold it against them. rightly so. And I had to take it on the chin, because this is it. This is it. I had to be selfish. And I got this, the scene became the book, and dum ba dum ba dum ba dum. So I don't think it matters. Yes, there are things you can do to help yourself if you're autistic or ADHD. I have found, particularly for me, that allowing for moments of hyperfocus when it's positive have been amazing for me, and having not so much the routine but having the responsibility to other people has been very helpful to me. Having the obligation to somebody else has helped me a lot more than having the obligation to myself. But I also think, and I think this isn't about ADHD or neurodiversity or autism or anything. You have to be bloody minded, and you have to be selfish, because if you're not, things will happen. If you're not, you'll think to yourself, oh, gosh, I should really phone Daphne, or I haven't done the laundry for a few days, it's my turn, or I don't know, whatever the thing is in your life. I mean, obviously, I don't get responsible for children or others, then I do not include this.
Yeah.
Let's apply a bit of common sense before I start getting sued, right? I know America is very litigious. But within the boundaries of common sense, you just have to say, this is it. This is the thing that I am doing, and it's important. And it's maybe at this moment more important than you.
I remember some of my earliest memories, because I mentioned that my mother is an author,
Yeah.
paranormal romance, and some of my earliest memories were like, I would, when me and my brother were kids, sometimes she would be on deadline. And
Yeah.
basically that
Yeah.
means, like, she needs to get a full polished manuscript to her editor by like the end of the week, and she's only about halfway done or whatever. Um, and the rule would be,
That's
you
a really
know,
good example.
yep, leave mom alone unless it's one of the three B's: burns, blood, or barf. If those three aren't happening, you're staying out of mom's room, you're staying out of her way. Go bug dad about it if you really need an adult for something like that. But yeah, that was the rule. Dad enforced it. I enforced, like,
Yeah.
it was just
Yeah.
like, don't bother mom, she is on deadline. The same rule applied to when she had a migraine too. Oh,
Yes. 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 And I think that's it. I mean, I was about to say I'm very lucky in that James, my partner, has been supportive from the beginning. Even the year where he became a widow, he put up with it, he did it, and then at the end of it, he was like, "Oh my god, I miss you." Um,
mhm.
but he has always been supportive of it, and I think that that is luck. But I think also, as gosh, I'm complicating the simple rule now, aren't I? I think also, absolutely I think you have to be selfish. I think you have to make time for it. And I think you have to be very clear about that. I think
Mhm.
people need to know, this is something I'm doing, and it's important, and it takes the time away from you. I think being clear is helpful, because I wasn't clear that first year. I didn't even know myself. Like, I came from writing fanfics in my spare time. I didn't know
Mhm.
that this was going to become the obsession that it became. But nowadays, it's very clear. It's like he gets it. He's like, you know, okay, she's doing this thing, and I understand what she's doing, and I involve him in it as well. Like, FD Lee is I would say, honestly, FD Lee now, the kind of machine of it, if you like, the business of it,
Mhm.
is as much him as it is me. Like, I talk to him, we go to I was going to say conferences, that's academia. We go to conventions together. He
Mhm.
helps me. He joins in with, like, when I get different book covers, sent to me, and I have to choose, and da ba da ba da.
Yep.
Um, so I think, yes, I think you do have to be selfish. I think you have to find the space and the time and be quite rigid on that. Otherwise, it will slip. But
Mhm.
I do think you can mitigate that by being very honest about it and being very realistic about it and saying this is something that's hugely important to me and it is going to mean that X, Y, and Z. And also, I think, involve other people, but you should involve other people as a writer anyway.
Yeah, no,
You
it's my
should.
my dad has been my mom's biggest cheerleader and editor. Like, he reads pretty much everything that
Yeah.
she writes before the editor even does,
Yeah.
and he's got really great insight. In fact, growing up watching this, in my head, it was mom writes a book, dad edits the book, mom becomes a best-selling author. So if I write a book and I make my dad edit it, I'll become a
That's
best-selling author at
interesting.
age 12.
Can Dad edit my books, please? I want to get in on that train track. I would like that train track. But no, yeah, absolutely. Writing is a team sport, and I think there is I think this, maybe this helps my neurodivergency, maybe it doesn't, but it definitely helps my writing, like the quality of the product that comes out the other end, because it's very the kind of natural lean, I think, of writing. It's probably other things creative, but I only know writing. The natural lean is that it's hugely solitary,
Yeah, but
and
it's
there
it
is that
is, but it
tradition
also
behind.
isn't.
Well, that's it, isn't it? And there is that tradition behind it being hugely solitary. There is the tradition, the kind of, again, the trope, right,
Mhm.
of the male, I hate to say it, but the kind of the trope of the male author, half mad, half drunk, sitting in a garret flat, writing with a stub of a candle, living off stale bread, and somehow producing this kind of seminal masterpiece of fiction.
Yep.
And
It's the
like
dream.
most, yeah, like most tropes, there is some truth in it. These things become cliches because there is some truth in it, but it's also equally completely misleading and hugely redundant. My writing improved and continues to improve because other people are involved in it at every
Mm.
stage. People are involved when um when I'm just kind of shit talking ideas, and I'm like, oh, I had a dream last night. And in the dream, a lot of my stories come from dreams. Oh, in this dream, this thing happened. But actually, I think if I added this and did this and boo, 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 then I think that's a story that will go in the file. And at some point, I will come to it.
Mhm.
But that happens because I talk to people. I'm like, oh, and they respond and we, co-create. And then I'm writing, and all the time I'm writing, I'm speaking to author friends about, dooba dooba doo. I'm sending scenes, I'm sending chapters. Then exactly like your mum, the thing is finished. It will go out to close friends. Then it will go out to the sensitivity readers. Then it will come back to me and I'll make changes. Then it will go to the editor and it will come back to me and I will make changes. And then, at that point, it will hit the world.
And in between all of that, you're squeezing in as much socialization as you can until the relationship's over, until the next draft.
I'm quite lucky, I think, that I don't. I'm not one of those people necessarily that needs people. So,
Mm.
like lockdown was hugely traumatic for so many people, and understandably so. But for
And
me,
for
it
me
was
and my
wonderful.
family, it was just like, whatever. We didn't want to go outside
Yes,
anyway.
exactly. No, I thrived in lockdown. I was like, okay, everything
Same.
is happening online, which has, you remember I was saying earlier, like my autism is very rules based. Everything happens online. There are not only like technical rules, like mute yourself, do this, do that, but
Mhm.
actually the social rules are pretty clear.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Whereas, like, doing stuff in person, it's like, oh, let's meet for a cup of coffee and discuss the syllabus. It's like, we're discussing the syllabus as a professional conversation, but you want to do it in the Costa Coffee and the atrium, which isn't. So how is this going to work? And oh, you've just bumped into me and now you want to ask about the next exam suite, but I was just walking like having a cigarette and just walking, but now we've bumped into it. Stuff like that does my nut in. Like, I can't cope at all. I'm like, what are the rules? How do
If
I
you
do
if you
this?
hadn't shared that you were autistic before now, that would have given you away.
Yeah.
Why
No,
were you
for sure.
diagnosed late in life? That's pretty obvious.
Yeah, no, when I got my diagnosis, I had to go down to London to visit like the clinic or the psychiatrist or whatever. And I went in for a dyslexia diagnosis because my brother's dyslexic, and I knew for years that I was dyslexic, but I was born before dyslexia existed.
Mm.
And anyway, I was doing like some MA or something. I've done that. Sounds so casual, but I'm ravenous for qualification. So I don't know, I
You
was
know,
doing.
casually getting your master's. Okay, whatever.
Yeah, no, it sounds awful, doesn't it? Don't I sound like such a big head. I don't mean it like that. Anyway, whatever, doesn't matter. So I was doing this course, this postgraduate thing, and part of the thing that I got for being with this university was a free diagnosis. And I honestly thought to myself, do you know what? I'd just like to know. I'd just like to
Mm-hmm.
know. So I pootled down to London and went in for this dyslexia assessment. It was about 3 or 4 hours. And I came out the other side of it with dyslexia, dyspraxia, autism, and ADHD. And so I rang my mum. I rang my mum. I was like, and my mum took a minute and she went, oh yes.
That tracks. That makes sense. That
Yeah,
really that is like the best diagnosis. Honestly, it's the one where it's not a shock to anyone. It's the one where it's like
it was quite a
that
shock to
makes
me.
sense.
I was quite shocked, but yeah, no, you're quite right. No, you're quite right. So my mum's like, oh yeah. I was like, okay. Hung up on her, rang my friend who I was staying with in London, and then my mum went, and she goes, hmm, oh yeah. I was like, right, hung up on her, rang James, and my mum said, and Miranda said, and James goes, hmm, oh yeah. And I was like, fuck you all.
And on that note, we could bring this interview to an end. That's beautiful.
Oh, thank you so much. I've had a lovely time talking to you. I do apologize because I don't think I've answered any of your Patreons' questions very well. I'm so sorry, Patreons. I
I mean,
apologize.
what can we expect?
Not much.
I asked you how do you stop getting distracted from your writing career, and we then talked about accents for half an hour. So I think that pretty much answered the question very, very well. Not only do
I'm
you
so
not
sorry.
not only are you incapable of keeping yourself from getting distracted, you dragged me in with you.
I'm literally, absolutely, I'm like the tentacle monster coming out of the black hole, like Cthulhu. Oh, Chris, I've enjoyed this interview so much. Thank you. I apologize in advance because I've got no idea how you're going to tag this or sell this to all your beautiful Patreons and regular listeners who are expecting a really sensible conversation about writing and literature and art.
I'll
I,
figure something out. um, I am going to have your website and your information in the description of this video,
Thank
so that way,
you.
if people want to check out your books, they can do so very easily. If you want to read F.D. Lee's work, it's in the description of this video, as well as all of my books. Go check her out. She's a lot of fun, and I will see you all next week. Bye, lovelies.